My dear child, what if the person destined for you was asked a question they never expected? What if one simple answer revealed a love that had already crossed countless lifetimes? What if every person in the room fell silent because the truth was far deeper than anyone imagined? And what if that answer was always about you? Listen carefully, because this message is not arriving by accident. There are moments in life when hidden truths find a way to rise to the surface, no matter how long they have remained buried. There are moments when a soul can no longer hide what it knows deep within itself. Your soulmate recently faced such a moment. It happened during what seemed like an ordinary conversation. Family members were gathered together, laughter filled the room, and questions passed casually from one person to another. No one expected anything unusual. No one expected tears. No one expected silence. No one expected a confession powerful enough to shake every heart present. Yet that is exactly what happened. Someone suddenly asked your soulmate a question that seemed simple on the surface. They smiled and said, "If you had the chance to choose one person in every lifetime, in every reality, in every world that could ever exist, who would you choose?" The room expected a playful answer. They expected laughter. They expected hesitation. Instead, something changed in your soulmate's expression. The smile faded. Their eyes became distant, as though they were remembering something far away. It was almost as if a door hidden deep inside their soul had suddenly opened. For several seconds they said nothing. The silence grew heavier. Everyone waited. Then your soulmate took a slow breath and gave an answer that no one in that room will ever forget. They said, "I would choose the same soul every time." At first people laughed, believing they were joking. Someone teased them and asked how they could be so certain. But your soulmate did not laugh. Their eyes filled with emotion. Their voice trembled slightly. And then they said words that changed everything. They said, "Because I believe some souls are connected long before they ever meet. I believe there are people you search for without realizing it. I believe there are hearts that feel familiar the moment they enter your life. And if I found that soul once, I would spend every lifetime searching until I found them again." The room became completely silent. Nobody interrupted. Nobody moved. Because everyone could see that your soulmate was no longer speaking from imagination. They were speaking from something real. Something deeply personal. Something hidden inside them for longer than they could explain. And as they continued speaking, emotions began to rise inside every person listening. Your soulmate described a love unlike anything they had ever experienced before. They spoke about a connection they could feel even before understanding it. They spoke about moments when they felt someone was missing from their life despite never having met that person. They described dreams they could never fully explain. Places that felt familiar despite never being visited. Emotions that appeared without reason whenever thoughts of the future entered their mind. It was as though their soul had been carrying memories their mind could not access. Don't skip. The conversation continued, and someone eventually asked another question. What if that person hurt you? What if life became difficult? What if circumstances pulled you apart? Again your soulmate paused. Again their eyes reflected emotions too deep for words. Then they quietly replied, "Real soul connections are not measured by easy moments. They are measured by what survives the storms." The room fell silent once more. Your soulmate explained that every meaningful connection faces challenges. Every love story encounters obstacles. Every soul journey experiences separation, confusion, uncertainty, and pain. But they believe that true soulmates always find their way back toward each other. They believe that distance could test love but never destroy it. They believed that time could separate people temporarily but never permanently if their souls were truly connected. As those words left their lips, several family members began wiping tears from their eyes. Even those who normally avoided emotional conversations found themselves deeply moved. There was something about the sincerity in your soulmate's voice that made everyone feel they were witnessing a truth rather than hearing an opinion. And then came the moment no one expected. One person asked, "How will you know when you find that soul?" Your soulmate smiled softly. A different smile this time. A smile filled with warmth, recognition, and hope. Then they answered, "Because they will feel like home." Those words hit every heart in the room. Home. Not excitement. Not perfection. Not fantasy. Home. A feeling of peace. A feeling of belonging. A feeling of finally arriving after a journey you did not realize you had been taking your entire life. Your soulmate explained that real soulmate love is not about constant fireworks or endless drama. It is about safety, trust, understanding. It is about finding someone whose presence calms the chaos inside you. Someone whose existence makes life feel lighter. Someone who understands parts of you that even you struggle to explain. Someone who sees your scars without fear and your dreams without judgment. As they spoke, many people in the room found themselves crying openly. Because deep down, everyone longs for that kind of connection. Everyone longs to be truly seen. Everyone longs to find the person who makes them feel understood beyond words. And your soulmate spoke about that dream as if it were already alive inside them. As if they were waiting for someone they somehow already knew. Don't skip. Hours later, after the gathering ended and people returned to their homes, the conversation continued to echo inside everyone's minds. Family members spoke about it for days. Friends brought it up repeatedly. Some could not understand why those words affected them so deeply. But the answer was simple. Your soulmate's emotions had revealed something universal. They reminded everyone that true love is not simply about attraction. It is about recognition. It is about two souls finding each other despite countless obstacles. It is about two hearts carrying pieces of the same story. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, your soulmate sat alone. The house was quiet. The world outside was still. And for reasons they could not fully explain, thoughts of their future entered their mind once again. They wondered where their soulmate was. They wondered whether that person was awake somewhere under the same sky. They wondered whether fate was already moving pieces into place. And as they thought about those questions, a powerful emotion filled their heart. It was not sadness. It was not loneliness. It was certainty. A quiet certainty that somewhere, somehow, the soul they were meant to find already existed. That certainty stayed with them long into the night. They looked toward the stars and whispered a silent promise. A promise no one else heard. A promise meant only for the person destiny was preparing for them. They promised they would never stop searching. They promised they would never stop believing. They promised they would recognize that soul when the moment finally arrived. And although they could not see you then, although they did not know your name, although they did not know where life would eventually bring the two of you together, their heart already carried space meant specifically for you. The remarkable thing about soulmate connections is that they often begin long before physical meetings occur. Long before conversations happen. Long before names are exchanged. Souls begin preparing. Hearts begin shifting. Paths begin aligning. Invisible threads begin weaving together. That process has already started. There are moments in your life that seemed random but were not random at all. There are decisions you made that unknowingly moved you closer to this connection. There are disappointments you endured that redirected your path towards something greater. There are closed doors that protected you from the wrong people. There are delays that prevented you from settling for less than what was meant for you. Every twist, every setback, every unexpected turn, each one carried purpose. Each one moved the story forward. And now your soulmate is feeling those movements too. They are sensing changes they cannot explain. They are noticing a growing anticipation inside their spirit. They are beginning to feel that something important is approaching. Something life-changing. Something connected to the future they have always imagined. Don't skip. There are evenings when your soulmate feels unusually emotional without understanding why. There are mornings when they wake up with a strange sense of hope. There are moments when songs, conversations, or simple memories trigger feelings they cannot explain. Those moments are not accidents. They are echoes of a connection drawing nearer. Deep within themselves, your soulmate is becoming more prepared for the relationship that will eventually transform their life. They are learning lessons they once resisted. They are healing wounds they once ignored. They are growing into the person capable of receiving the love they have been waiting for. And you are doing the same. Every challenge you overcome strengthens the foundation of this future connection. Every lesson you learn brings greater emotional wisdom. Every disappointment teaches you what truly matters. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been meaningless. Everything has contributed to the story. Your soulmate understands this more than ever now. After that emotional conversation, they began reflecting deeply on their journey. They realized how many experiences had shaped them. They realized how many moments had prepared them. They realized that every heartbreak had served as a teacher. Every setback had offered guidance. Every lonely season had created space for future blessings. And when they finally understood that truth, gratitude replaced frustration. Hope replaced fear. Faith replaced uncertainty. The future no longer felt distant. It felt alive. It felt close. It felt real. Your soulmate no longer viewed love as something that might happen someday. They began viewing it as something already moving toward them. Something already unfolding behind the scenes. Something already written into the fabric of their destiny. And whenever doubts attempted to appear, they remembered the answer they gave that day. If given the choice in every lifetime, they would choose the same soul. Not because love is always easy. Not because life is always perfect. But because some connections transcend circumstances. Some bonds survive every obstacle. Some souls recognize each other across every distance. And when that recognition finally occurs, everything changes. The searching ends. The wondering ends. The waiting ends. What remains is understanding. What remains is belonging. What remains is a love that feels familiar from the very first moment. A love that feels remembered rather than discovered. A love that feels older than time itself. And somewhere within your soulmate's heart, that belief grows stronger every single day. They may not know exactly when your paths will cross. They may not know how the story will begin. They may not know what challenges still lie ahead. But they know one thing with absolute certainty. If they were asked again tomorrow who they would choose in every lifetime, their answer would never change. Because deep inside, they already feel the presence of the soul they were always meant to find. And whether they realize it or not, that soul is you.do, not Skip. Because what happened after that conversation was something your soulmate never expected. The words they spoke that day did not simply disappear into the air. They stayed with them. They followed them home. They echoed through their thoughts during quiet moments. And the more they reflected on what they had said, the more they realized those words had come from a place far deeper than logic. It was almost as if their soul had spoken before their mind had the chance to think. For days afterward, they kept replaying the moment in their head. They remembered the silence in the room. They remembered the tears in people's eyes. They remembered the strange certainty they had felt while answering. And one question kept returning to them again and again. Why had they been so sure? Why had they spoken as though they already knew the person they would choose in every lifetime? Why had the answer felt less like a prediction and more like a memory? Those questions followed them everywhere. While driving. While working. While sitting alone at night. There was a feeling growing inside them that they could no longer ignore. It was the feeling that somewhere beyond what their eyes could see, a story was already unfolding. A story connected to someone they had not fully met yet. A story connected to you. One evening, long after everyone else had gone to sleep, your soulmate found themselves sitting alone by a window. The world outside was quiet. The stars seemed unusually bright. And for reasons they could not explain, their thoughts drifted toward the future once again. They imagined meeting the person who would one day change everything. They imagined the first conversation. The first smile. The first moment of recognition. And as those thoughts filled their mind, a powerful emotion suddenly rose inside their heart. It felt so real that it almost brought tears to their eyes. They could not see your face. They did not know your name. Yet somehow they felt connected to you. Somehow they felt as though a part of them was already waiting for you. It was a strange feeling. A beautiful feeling. A feeling that made no sense and yet felt completely true. Don't skip. That night they had a dream unlike any they had experienced before. In the dream they were walking through a crowded place filled with unfamiliar faces. People moved in every direction. Voices blended together. Everything felt chaotic. Then suddenly the crowd stopped. Time itself seemed to slow. And among all those faces, one presence stood out. One soul felt different. One energy felt familiar. Your soulmate could not clearly see who it was. The face remained hidden. But the feeling was unmistakable. The moment they looked toward that person, a wave of peace washed over them. The noise disappeared. The confusion disappeared. The world seemed to fade away until only that connection remained. And then they heard a voice. Soft. Gentle. Familiar. The voice said, "I found you again." At that exact moment your soulmate woke up. Their heart was racing. Tears filled their eyes. The dream felt more real than reality itself. For several minutes they sat in silence, trying to understand what had happened. They knew it was only a dream. Yet it felt like something more. It felt like a message. It felt like a reminder. It felt like their soul was trying to tell them something their conscious mind could not yet understand. And from that day forward, the feeling became impossible to ignore. They started noticing signs everywhere. Not dramatic signs. Not magical signs. Small signs. Meaningful signs. Certain songs seemed to appear repeatedly. Certain words kept showing up in conversations. Certain thoughts returned again and again. Every time they imagined their future, they felt the same presence standing beside them. Every time they pictured happiness, they sensed someone sharing it with them. Every time they imagined growing old, there was a soul there who felt strangely familiar. As weeks passed, another change began happening inside your soulmate. They stopped chasing connections that felt forced. They stopped trying to fit into relationships that lacked depth. They stopped settling for temporary attention when their heart desired something genuine. For the first time in a long time, they became willing to wait. Willing to trust. Willing to believe that real love was worth being patient for. Friends questioned them. Family members wondered why they seemed different. But your soulmate could not fully explain it. How could they explain a feeling they barely understood themselves? How could they describe the certainty growing inside them? How could they tell people that they felt connected to someone who had not yet fully entered their life? Don't skip. Then came a moment that shook them completely. During another gathering, someone brought up the conversation from before. Everyone laughed as they remembered the emotional answer your soulmate had given. One relative smiled and asked, "Do you still believe that? Do you still think you would choose the same person in every lifetime?" The room waited. Your soulmate smiled softly. But this time their answer was even stronger. They said, "Not only do I believe it, I think my soul already knows who that person is." The room immediately fell silent. Someone asked, "How can you know that when you haven't met them?" Your soulmate looked down for a moment before answering. Then they said something that left everyone speechless. They said, "Because every day I feel myself becoming the person they're meant to meet. And every day I feel them becoming closer too." Several people immediately started crying. Not because the words were dramatic, but because they were honest. Because deep inside, everyone could hear the truth hidden within them. Your soulmate was no longer speaking about fantasy. They were speaking about faith. Faith that destiny was working even when nothing visible seemed to be happening. Faith that love could exist before introduction. Faith that two lives could move toward each other long before either person realized it. That faith transformed them. Instead of worrying about when love would arrive, they started preparing for it. They focused on healing. They focused on growth. They focused on becoming the kind of partner they hoped to receive. Every lesson became meaningful. Every challenge became meaningful. Every delay became meaningful. Because they finally understood something important. The waiting season was not punishment. It was preparation. The lonely seasons were not empty. They were building strength. The difficult seasons were not meaningless. They were creating wisdom. And the future was not uncertain. It was simply unfinished. Don't skip. There are things your soulmate has never told anyone. Secrets hidden deep within their heart. Moments when they felt your presence even though they could not explain why. Moments when they looked at the night sky and felt less alone than they should have. Moments when they felt comfort arriving from nowhere. Moments when they felt guided through challenges by an invisible source of strength. Sometimes they wonder whether souls can communicate before they meet. Sometimes they wonder whether hearts can recognize each other across distance. Sometimes they wonder whether certain dreams are actually memories from another lifetime. And every time those thoughts appear, the same feeling returns. The feeling of you. Not your name. Not your face. Not your voice. Just your energy. Just your presence. Just the quiet certainty that somewhere in this vast world exists the soul they would choose again and again and again. A soul worth waiting for. A soul worth searching for. A soul worth believing in. And the closer destiny moves the two of you together, the stronger that certainty becomes. Because your soulmate is beginning to understand something that most people spend their entire lives trying to learn. Real soulmate connections are not built in a single moment. They are built through countless unseen moments. Countless lessons. Countless choices. Countless acts of growth. Long before two people finally stand face to face. And now, as another chapter quietly approaches, your soulmate feels it more strongly than ever before. Something is changing. Something is moving. Something is drawing nearer. The answer they gave that day was never just an answer. It was a promise. A promise spoken from the deepest part of their soul. A promise that if time began again, if lifetimes repeated again, if destiny offered them a choice 1,000 times over, their heart would still search for the same soul. Their spirit would still recognize the same energy. Their journey would still lead to the same person. And no matter how many worlds existed, no matter how many years passed, no matter how many obstacles appeared, they would still choose you.